1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here is the news edited by Romesh Piris and read by Indrani Senanaika. The headlines. Sri Lanka mourns the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The Prime Minister says Sri Lanka will overcome the economic crisis with global support. Sri Lanka to present debt restructuring and IMF bailout plans to creditors. The Sri Lankan consulate in Turkey confirms the identity and welfare of the 7 Sri Lankans missing in Ukraine. The 2022 edition of the Colombo International Book Fair opens to the public for the third day at the BMICH. In foreign news, President Zelensky promises to let up in counter-offensive against Russia. In sports news, the Road Safety World Series, Sri Lanka legends edge South Africa in a thriller. Sri Lanka will today mourn the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who was the country's head of state between 1952 and 1972. The government has declared today a day of mourning and granted a special holiday for all government institutions in view of the funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Meanwhile, the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II's state funeral will take place at Westminster Abbey in London this afternoon. The event will be attended by more than 2,000 official guests, including many heads of state from around the world. President Ranil Wickremesinghe, who paid his last respects to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth at the Westminster Hall at London's Palace of Westminster last evening, will also attend the state funeral today. The eyes of the Commonwealth will be fixed on a historic moment as the longest surviving monarch in British history is laid to rest. A kingdom united in grief will mourn the loss of their revered queen today. Pomp and pageantry will be on display as tens of thousands line the streets of the British capital and hundreds of millions tune in for the state funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The late Queen will lie at state at Westminster Hall until this morning. Crowds of mourners continue to flood the capital in hopes of witnessing the coffin draped in the royal standard and carrying the instruments of state one last time before the Queen makes the journey to her final resting place with St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The Queen's funeral will take place at Westminster Abbey at 11 a.m. BST, 3:30 p.m. Sri Lankan time. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena says Sri Lanka will be able to successfully tackle the economic crisis with the support of the International Monetary Fund. Speaking to the media in Anuradhapura, Prime Minister Gunawardena said the government has a plan to overcome the ongoing crisis. The Premier noted that the present administration is receiving support from several countries to overcome the crisis. The Prime Minister noted, however, some factions with vested political interests are seeking intervention from international bodies. Sri Lanka will make a presentation to its international creditors on Friday, laying out the full extent of its economic troubles and plans for a debt restructuring and multi-billion-dollar International Monetary Fund bailout. Sri Lanka is currently going through its worst economic crisis since independence from Britain in 1948, causing it to default on its sovereign debt. The Minister of Finance said in a statement via legal firm Clifford Chance that an online call on the 23rd of September would be open to all its external creditors and be an interactive session in which participants can ask questions. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. We continue with local news. The Sri Lankan consulate in Turkey has confirmed the identity and safety of the 7 Sri Lankans who were caught in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. Earlier, the Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry requested the Ukrainian government to ascertain the veracity of the news item with regard to the rescue of the 7 Sri Lankans and to provide more information on it as a matter of priority, given the need to ensure the welfare of the Sri Lankan nationals in Ukraine. Reportedly, the 7 Sri Lankans were held by the Russian forces since March this year until their release. The Foreign Ministry is in close communication with the Ukrainian government through the Sri Lankan Embassy in Ankara, which is concurrently accredited to Ukraine, as well as through the Ukrainian Embassy in New Delhi, in order to obtain further information on this matter. The 2022 edition of the Colombo International Book Fair is open to the public for the third day today at the BMICH. Organised by the Book Publishers Association, the Colombo International Book Fair 2022 will be held from the 16th to the 25th of September. This annual event, which extends over a week, is taking place for the 23rd time. That ends the local segment of news.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Sri Lanka will today mourn the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, who was the country's head of state between 1952 and 1972. The government has declared today a day of mourning and granted a special holiday for all government institutions in view of the funeral of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen's state funeral will take place at Westminster Abbey in London this afternoon.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Vedamahatmya.
Parliament is scheduled to reopen to the public gallery tomorrow. The Committee on Parliamentary Business decided to approve the proposal made by the Sergeant-at-Arms to relax restrictions currently in place pertaining to entertaining the parliamentary complex and the galleries. Accordingly, with effect from the 20th of September 2022, school children will be allowed to visit the parliamentary complex on non-sitting days from 9:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. except on holidays. School authorities have been instructed to submit applications to the Sergeant-at-Arms by directing a letter or a fax on 0112 777 473 or 0112 777 335, or by applying online via student groups of universities, higher education institutes registered under the government, and foreign tourists can also avail this facility. World News Headlines. King Charles deeply touched by public support. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan border fighting claimed nearly 100 lives. Hurricane Fiona knocks out Puerto Rico's electricity. King Charles III has said he is deeply touched by the support he has received from across the world in a message on the eve of the Queen's funeral. The King said he and Camilla, the Queen consort, were moved beyond measure by everyone who took the trouble to pay their respects. Furthermore, he said, as we prepare to say our last farewell, I wanted simply to take this opportunity to say thank you. The state funeral service at Westminster Abbey begins at 11 BST. Some 2,000 people are expected to attend the ceremony, including 500 presidents, prime ministers, and foreign royals from around the world. There, the king will lead the nation in mourning for its longest reigning monarch. At least 94 people have been killed in clashes on the Kyrgyzstan-Tajikistan border. The deadliest clashes in years, fighting between the two Central Asian states, broke out on Wednesday before a ceasefire was brokered on Friday. Clashes regularly erupt between the two former Soviet republics, whose border remains contested. Russia's President Vladimir Putin appealed to the two countries to resolve their differences peacefully. Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan share a 1,000-kilometer border, a third of which is disputed. Hurricane Fiona knocked out all electricity on the U.S. island of Puerto Rico as winds reached 140 kilometers per hour. Through officials, some of the island's power had been restored. The rest will take days to be reconnected, according to the operator of the island's grid, Luma Energy. The Category 1 storm caused severe flooding and landslides on the island. Ports have been closed and flights out of the island's main airport have been cancelled. To end this bulletin of world news, the headlines again. King Charles deeply touched by public support. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan border fighting claimed 100 lives. Hurricane Fiona knocks out Puerto Rico's electricity. On to development news. Lanka IOC plc said it commenced commercial operations of Sri Lanka's first grease manufacturing plant at the LIOC terminal in Trincomalee. The facility, with a 3,000 metric ton per annum capacity, is built with an investment of 320 million rupees. The plant is expected to serve Sri Lanka's entire grease requirement. The plant is equipped with state-of-the-art grease testing laboratory equipment, which will enable in-house testing of a wide variety of lithium-based grease to be produced.
Sports News is brought to you by...
With many values that bind us beyond the transaction, we are Sampath Bank. We present your future.
The 10th match of the Road Safety World Series, Sri Lanka Legends made a superb team effort to beat South Africa Legends by 11 runs in their match played at Indore in India yesterday. Sri Lanka Legends, led by T.M. Dilshan, well depended on a total of 166 runs to seal their third back-to-back victory. South African Legends managed to get 154 for 6 wickets in the allotted 20 overs with 11 runs behind. Sri Lanka has already won against Australia, England and South Africa, maintaining an unbeaten streak as they currently hold the top position with 6 points.
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB, now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Encouraging home gardening in the urban city of Colombo to combat surging food costs, Sri Lanka's most customer-friendly bank, HNB plc, launched its flagship initiative to revive and revitalize the agricultural industry, Saru Giwatta, across 9 selected branches in the city. Working in collaboration with agricultural officers at district level, the second leg of the initiative was launched at the Vallavatta, Timbirigasaya, Bambalapitiya, C Street, Kolopitiya, Green Path, Head Office, Mutwal and Kotahena customer centres recently. Additionally, HNB officers and officials from the Agricultural Department also invited and visited residents in the vicinity of the 4 branches to join them in their efforts.
Business News, sponsored by...
The fastest way to earn the highest interest from NSB, now extended till the 30th of September just for you. Your short-term deposits receive an attractive interest rate of 20% in 3 months and 22% in 7 months. Visit a bank branch or a main postal office today. NSB, the only bank with 100% government guarantee.
Economic News, courtesy of...
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
The repeatedly battered tourism industry in the last 3 years is showing some recovery with the resurgence of global leisure travel and the focused efforts by the Sri Lankan authorities and industry stakeholders to attract more travellers to the country. According to earnings data compiled by the central bank, Sri Lanka has earned $67.9 million from tourism in August, slightly below the $85.1 million earned in July, as arrivals saw some decline between the 2 months. There was roughly a 10,000 deficit in the arrivals in August compared to 47,293 visitors in July. But the industry is preparing for the stronger arrivals season.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
And finally, we take a look at the weather report. The Department of Meteorology predicts a few showers in the western and Sabaragamu provinces and in the Galle and Matara districts today. The Met Department said showers or thunder showers can be expected at a few places in the Uva province and in the Ampara and Batikolo districts during the evening or at night. To end this afternoon's news broadcast, we take a look at the headlines again. Sri Lanka mourns the death of Queen Elizabeth II. The Prime Minister says Sri Lanka will overcome the economic crisis with global support. Sri Lanka to present debt restructuring and IMF bailout plans to creditors. The Sri Lankan consulate in Turkey confirms the identity and welfare of the 7 Sri Lankans missing in Ukraine. The 2022 edition of the Colombo International Book Fair opened to the public for the third day at the BMICH. In foreign news, President Zelensky promises no let-up in counter-offensive against Russia. And sports news. The Road Safety World Series, Sri Lanka legends edge South Africa in a thriller. That ends this afternoon's news broadcast.